disasters I've missed.
Ah, disasters are a good thing to keep
Missed.
an eye on.
All right.
All right.
Australia still.
And here we are.
Australia still.
Listo is a good state to be in. Yeah, listo para todo.
Para again.
If you would just swing the mic a little closer to, yeah, and then, yeah, and just tip it up. Um, so you want the roundest part. Yeah, there you go. That's good. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Padre James,
Well,
welcome back.
I'm good to be back. A nice fire going.
What's the occasion this time around?
Well, I should have been at the Dawson Fall Institute, which people from Pell tell me was very good this year, but although it's a distasteful thing to say, I had some diarrhea. Plan was just to detour to Lander on the way back.
Hmm.
In fact, I didn't make it down to Casper because the first part of this week I dared not stray too far
From a
from
from a restroom.
from the porcelain deity.
Oh, yes. Yes. He was demanding constant worship,
Well, frequent,
or at least your body was insisting on constant piety. Yeah.
yes. And then after that, a couple days, I think it was imprudence with my eating.
Hmm.
Be more careful with groceries and eating.
Have you started doing the shopping along the circumference of the grocery store?
It's your advice. I've not done that yet.
Ooh, it's the move.
Well,
It's the single simplest thing you can do
I like
to improve
simple.
the diet.
Not simple is good.
Yeah.
So after 2 days of that, third day, all I wanted to do was sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So on the fourth day, I'm functional again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good.
And I thought I would come down.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll try to work in some training if we have time. And the conversation, as always, has already been fantastic. And
Enjoyed it. Did it.
but now we
The
owe
garage group in Lander. My garage group in Pell. So to try to,
for the murder yoga.
yeah,
Yes, the folding of people with folding of clothes with people inside them.
people still inside.
Yes, we had a D1 wrestler come visit us Monday. Yeah, Monday. Oh no, Tuesday. Tuesday he came down. Yeah, I think he wrestled at Iowa State.
They've got a very different style. Huh? They've got a very different style. Once upon a time, Iowa Teachers College.
Uh-huh.
They've been a wrestling power for a long time.
Yes. Well, he was a wrestling power himself. Shout out to Caleb. Yeah,
Something to see.
something to experience. Yeah, not a huge guy. Wiry and strong,
Of
but
course.
not huge. But his takedowns, So I guess he had wrestled young, wrestled throughout middle school, high school, and then college, obviously. But I think he said he had been wrestling for 20 years, which would imply that he had done it even after college.
That's what it would seem.
Yeah, yeah. It was humbling, but also remarkable. Yeah, to grapple with someone with that level of expertise. Yeah. So hopefully he comes back. He's here in Lander now. So
Good.
if you come down regularly, you'll probably get a chance to train with Caleb.
I'll hope to get down.
Yeah. Yeah. Seems like a good guy.
Make the occasional getaway.
Mm. The occasional pilgrimage to the wrestling mecca
That's right.
of Western Wyoming.
Western Wyoming.
I know.
Central Wyoming.
Central Wyoming. That's fair. Yeah. We've been discussing representations of history.
Yes. Which allows me to make a segue.
Oh,
Yes. You mentioned wrestling.
yes.
There. The movie Gladiator.
Ah,
Movie Gladiator, which decided to have a fictionalized it, to put it far too mildly. One of my pet peeves, in movies, they take historical characters
mm-hmm.
and they just write their own story.
Yes.
When the historical story, with just a couple of modifications for the sake of dramatic unity, dramatic cohesion, would be quite fascinating and exciting.
Yes.
But they don't do that. So they wrote their own story. But historically, here's the segue. The Emperor Commodus met his demise in 12 years of misrule,
Uh-huh.
met his demise at the hands of a professional wrestler.
Uh-huh.
That's the segue.
The the story is true that he would go into the arena for mock gladiatorial combat.
Well, yes, probably mock. He was obsessed with the arena.
Hmm.
Uh, he is, he was possibly sincerely convinced that, how shall I put this? In modern terms, he identified as Hercules.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so sincerely convinced that he was some sort of reincarnation or avatar of the god Hercules.
Hmm.
Uh, Obsessed with physical strength, physical fitness, obsessed with the arena,
Too good
not
at,
obsessed with running the empire.
but he was physically very capable.
He was physically very
Or
capable.
was he just the sort of guy who talks about it all the time?
He spent a lot of time doing it.
Okay. All right.
One assumes that the famous bust of Commodus, in which he looks like a muscular dork, there's a
Hmm.
bit of old slang for you. Uh, one assumes there was some flattery involved, but uh, it's doubtful that he could have become so obsessed with being the reincarnation of Hercules
Hmm.
if he didn't have some physique to
Right.
back that up. And
To look in the mirror and convince himself, this
exactly,
is Hercules reincarnate.
exactly.
Hmm. I'm curious.
He's crazier and less sinister than the movie makes him.
Uh-huh.
He was sinister enough, but a lot of the intrigues and backstabbings of his reign had to deal with who actually was going to run the show while he was playing Hercules.
Ah. And he, but you're saying that a great degree of the chaos of his reign just stemmed from the fact that he really had some screws loose,
Yes.
more than he had malice towards this individual or that, although there was a touch of that as well.
Oh, yes. He was, ancient historians say different things about him. Dio Cassius, who knew him personally, said that in so many words, said that he was really not a terrible kid.
Uh-huh.
And perhaps with proper guidance, might not have been nearly as, he was always unstable.
Right.
But Dio Cassius, who knew him personally, said he wasn't a terrible kid, uh, unstable.
Hmm.
Dio Cassius didn't say that if you had Marcus Aurelius as a father, you'd be unstable too. He didn't say that. That's, Marcus Aurelius was very much obsessed with being the righteous man.
Ah, yeah, we were talking about this at dinner, the four motivations of men.
Yes, and his
Yeah.
motivation is being righteous, always
Right.
righteous.
That would be related to honor, which is, I
It
think,
would be. He,
yeah.
Marcus Aurelius reminds me a little bit of Henry Fonda characters in movies. Old movies. I'm kind of a fan of old movies.
Are you?
Sometimes they get on my nerves. And if Henry Fonda's in a movie,
Hmm.
you don't need to identify him, Henry Fonda as a particular role. You can just say Henry Fonda as the righteous man.
Hmm.
He's always the righteous man in the movie. Well, Marcus Aurelius is obsessed with being the righteous
Is
man.
he in, is that him in To Kill a Mockingbird?
Oh, heavens no, Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck is, okay. Why do I associate Henry Fonda with To Kill a Mockingbird? Clearly a gap in my own knowledge.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there are a few.
Yeah.
There's a few in everyone's, but obsessed with being the righteous man always. And I think it must have been a little bit oppressive. Not that one should indulge in pop psychologizing long dead people. Commodus was 18 when his father died.
Hmm.
There's no question. It's something the movie plays with absurdly,
Hmm.
really absurdly. Republic or empire? Well, no one in 180 was going to be asking that question. Um,
It
it
was an
was,
empire.
yes,
Everyone knew it was an empire.
and that was the only way to run things.
Right.
Uh, Everyone agreed. Particularly command of the army. There needed to be a commander in chief. And everyone needed to know who the commander in chief was
Hmm.
and who the commander in chief was going to be. So there's no question, Empire, no question, Commodus, the only 18 was going to step into that role because everybody knew who the commander, everybody needed to know who the commander in chief, Imperator, was going to be.
And he was the only reasonable candidate.
Yes, otherwise there'd be fighting.
Yep.
It's the emperor's son, only possibility. The emperor's son had very little interest in the working side of being emperor, which, to do him justice, Marcus Aurelius was committed to. Uh, Commodus had no interest in the working side of being an emperor. He had no interest, he didn't have his father's philosophical, quasi-religious fanaticism. Marcus Aurelius was a fanatical Stoic. It's the only way to think, only way to be. One of the reasons why there was more persecution of Christians under the ever so virtuous Marcus Aurelius. You can tell I didn't enjoy reading his meditations. He's the sort of
It
person,
is somewhat clear. We
yeah,
may have to circle back to that.
I did not enjoy it. He's the sort of person who gives virtue its bad name. Uh, but anyway, he certainly worked.
He's the sort of person who makes virtuous living look like, man,
Who the hell wants to do
who
that?
wants to do that? It's not a good time.
He gives virtue its bad name.
No.
It's very much the philosophy of grin and bear it. And when you read his meditations, it's one continual slog of grinning and bearing it. And
Maybe
of
more
course,
Grimace and Barrett.
at some point, you vaguely feel you're supposed to admire this man for grinning and bearing so much. But you feel you have to say, if you just went off and got drunk occasionally, you might be happier, and the emperor might be happier. This constant being the righteous man, the perfect stoic, has a distorting effect. In any case, there was active persecution, not in, it wasn't his pet issue, but people knew that if you didn't like Christians and you wanted to kill a few, this was the time to do it because the emperor didn't like them. That changed with Commodus, partly because if his father didn't like Christians, I think he supposed there must be something good to be said for them.
Right.
Uh, he himself had no interest in Christianity, he knew the existence of Christians, but his own interest was being the reincarnation of Hercules. As I said, Dio Cassius said of him, he was not a terrible kid. If there'd been someone not insufferable to take him in hand, but he's 18 and emperor, who's going to take him in hand?
There was not the well-developed regimen for a prince at this time that if you're going to inherit the throne, you're going to be doing certain definite things in your education. This was not developed in
It
Rome.
was not.
Why not? They surely someone had thought of this.
Part of it was the element of every political system is element of pretense, right?
Hmm.
So it was not unique to the Roman imperial system. Um, I don't want to go off in any rabbit holes, but someone could point to our political system and say there are certain elements of pretense to it.
Okay.
Everybody pretends certain crucial things, and if everybody agrees in pretending these, business proceeds. So the central pretense of the imperial system was that there's one reason why republic versus empire was a unaskable question. Uh, the central pretense was that this is the republic. There was no notion that the empire was something separate from a republic. That was a crucial pretense. Therefore, the pretense was the emperor, who was a monarch, but the pretense had to be that he was the first magistrate of the republic. So there wasn't a highly developed cursus. There was a highly developed cursus honorum for senators,
Yes.
a path of offices they needed to have, but there was not a highly developed cursus honorum for future emperor, unfortunately. It was understood he'd inherit certain tasks. Marcus Aurelius had been adopted by Antoninus Pius and had been put into those tasks. But again, Commodus was only 18. Uh, Even had there been a highly developed system, he was
A teenager.
a teenager,
Yes.
big, strong. Unstable teenager
A big, strong, unstable teenager. Yes. Who's
who
going to
now
take
has
him in hand?
unimaginable wealth and power.
Mm, yes. A trillionaire.
Yeah,
A
that's right.
trillionaire and commander in chief.
A trillionaire with an army at his disposal. The army was the key.
Okay.
It is said that the Emperor Augustus once had an argument about a point of grammar with a scholar, and the scholar ceded the point to the emperor. And afterwards, someone is said to have asked the scholar, "Well, you were correct. Why did you cede the point?" And the scholar said, "I do not argue with the master of 30 legions."
Right.
All right.
Yeah, sure. It's the comma is correctly placed,
That's
not
right.
dangling at all.
That's right. I
Yeah.
don't remember what the point of grammar was, but
Right. Right.
I do not argue with the master of 30 legions.
Right. Over a participle.
But
All right. So
he
going.
was the key.
All right. So we promised ourselves that we'd scorciate certain movies.
That's right.
What went wrong with Gladiator? And to be clear, as a drama, I do like it.
To be clear. Yes, so as I commented earlier, there's this, why not just invent fictional characters
Mm.
instead of taking historical characters and completely discarding
Who they were.
who they were and what they did, how they lived, how they died?
Mm.
Completely discarding that and writing your own story. Inventing a few entirely fictional ones. Magnus Maximus, what an absurd name. Uh,
One of the Maximus Gaius Decimus.
yeah, Max, that's right. Maximus Decimus, good grief. Uh, entirely fictional character, ludicrous story surrounding him. But well, why not work with interesting historical characters? Uh, Stick to the basics. You have to make adjustments for dramatic coherence. A
Mm-hmm.
movie is not a history lesson, but stick to the historical story, which is really quite fascinating by itself. To help your dramatic coherence, you can inject a fictional character and you can adjust a couple of things, but
I mean, this is what does happen in The Three Musketeers, no? That
it,
Dumas was able to weave
novel, yes,
the novel,
the
the
novel.
novel. How many times? Oh, golly, The Three Musketeers has been adapted to film, what, 6 times, I think?
Yes, and mostly badly.
Mostly badly. I'm trying to think if there's one that is actually
The 70s version.
is considered
I have no
fairly
doubt in my mind it's the only one worth watching,
ah.
especially Charlton Heston as Cardinal Richelieu.
Mm-hmm.
He nails the role. Most movies have the temptation to make Cardinal Richelieu the villain, which he's not in the novel. He's the flawed hero
Mm-hmm.
who's serving the best interests of France
Mm-hmm.
while simultaneously serving his best interests. But he's serving the best interests of France. Uh,
And that was something that is clear in Dumas' novel as well.
yes.
Okay.
So he's not the villain particularly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he happens to employ the villain. But anyway, Dumas takes historical characters, including the Musketeers themselves. He adjusts with the famous historical characters, the King, the Queen, the Duke of Buckingham, Cardinal Richelieu. With the famous historical characters, he's very respectful of what's
The historical record.
the historical record. He fills in the historical record, which you can do in a novel. It's not a history book. He fills in the historical record, but he's respectful of it. For second level historical characters, he feels free to adjust some things in their lives. Like D'Artagnan, he puts his arrival in Paris 20 years earlier
Mm-hmm.
because he wanted to have one flawed hero, D'Artagnan, with the flaws of a young man, but
Yes.
flawed.
Yes.
He wanted to have the interaction between one flawed hero, the young flawed hero, and the old flawed hero, Richelieu. He wanted them in interaction. So to do that, he had to take the historical D'Artagnan, who did die as commander of the King's Musketeers, died in one of Louis XIV's Dutch wars.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he just transported him 20 years earlier.
Mm-hmm. But in doing so, did not do violence to history
That do
because of.
violence history. He was very respectful of the primary historical actors,
Yep.
and he fitted his drama into historical events. He didn't change those events. Now, secondary historical characters, the Musketeers themselves, yeah, they're here to adjust things in their lives to fit his drama.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then going back to Gladiator, I think Gladiator attracts my attention more than most. Braveheart, Band of Brothers, Dances with Wolves, and we are going to get to these
We'll
movies.
get to them. Get to them. Oh, yeah.
If our appetite for excoriation has not been filled
I will not
by the
expect to
time
hit all of those.
we're done with Gladiator, then we can move on.
One historian, deeply learned in the lore of that era, said, we know that the competition was who's going to manage the empire for Commodus. And it was a bloodthirsty competition.
Who's going to be the power behind the
Who's going to be
throne
the power behind the throne?
slash chief courtier?
Right. And it was a contact sport, jostling for that position. So people who are on the other side politically and their friends and family could be wiped out. Now, the way to kick someone off that pedestal would be to get the emperor to decide that this person is a threat.
Hmm.
Commodus is impressionable that way, which is odd for someone who thought he was the reincarnation of Hercules.
He was a insecure
He was
reincarnation.
very insecure, very insecure. So if he could be convinced somebody was plotting against him,
Hmm.
he would order a wave of executions. The former top advisor would be gone, but so would the former top advisor's family, friends, political supporters, family and friends of his political supporters. It made it very nerve-wracking to be anywhere near the top of politics. Nerve-wracking to the senators who were near the top of politics. So there's one story told, and there's a historian who pointed this out, about two brothers who were slated for execution, and they were both executed. One of the brothers had a teenage son who was also slated to be killed. The teenage son faked his death, faked his own death, and used, which could be a nice sequence in a movie with that. He faked his own death, falling from a horse, used that to escape. Uh, the ancient historical account simply says that once the authorities found out he was alive, they sent agents to kill him, but he always evaded those agents. Imagine, there's no details about that. So there's a lot to fill in there with your imagination.
Yes.
Plots against the young man.
And
Yeah.
he escaped to Sardinia, North Africa, Sicily.
They don't mention that.
Ah,
He was, oh, so here, after 12 years, the Emperor Commodus, as part of a palace plot, was strangled to death by a professional wrestler with clearly a stage name, Narcissus. Uh, Clearly a stage name. So there's no historical reason to suspect this, but it would fit the historical record if you had the young man on the run uh, go to professional wrestling school, acquire no identity, and over the course of 12 years, be picked as the emperor's personal trainer,
hmm.
and then having his opportunity to confront the would-be Hercules
Ah,
mano a mano.
that would be a tight narrative.
Tight narrative, tremendous fight scene at the end.
Hmm.
The emperor's professional trainer and the emperor himself thought himself the incarnation of Hercules, hand to hand in the imperial bathroom. That was the plot. The Everyone had grown tired of Commodus. He himself had made the terrible mistake of telling his mistress, his chief mistress, that he was tired of his commander of the guard and suspicious of him. So
And when Commodus said, "I'm tired of him and suspicious of him," that really
he's
means
dead.
I'm planning on
I'm
killing him.
planning on killing him. Told his mistress that. Made the terrible mistake of also telling the commander of the guard, I'm tired of her and suspicious of her. It
Uh,
never occurred to him that they might compare notes.
but they did.
They did. So they decided he had to go. How to do it?
So his chief mistress knew that Commodus really wanted the guard gone.
Yes.
The chief guard, knew that he really wanted his mistress gone. And when one was the chief mistress to the emperor, one did not retire, one was disappeared.
Yeah.
Ugh. How did
So
okay, all right, yeah, we have to finish the story, but I've got another question.
they
But what?
compared notes
Yep.
and arranged for Commodus to be poisoned. But the wine they poisoned, he drank so much that he threw everything up.
They were sitting there being like, "Oh, this is working out perfectly. Look how much he's drinking. Oh crap, he's."
So, second thing, the commander of the guard arranged for no guards to be around,
Mm-hmm.
and the mistress arranged for the emperor's personal trainer,
Mm-hmm.
the clear stage name Narcissus, to enter his bathroom and strangle him. So that much is historical. So you could fit that into a fictional narrative that would not do undue violence to the history. You make the huge leap, one huge leap for the sake of the drama.
Mm-hmm.
You make this trainer, Narcissus, you make him that senator's son who'd been on the run
Yes.
in disguise, who acquired a new identity, and now at last having a chance to deal hand to hand with the
With the
man who
man.
arranged the death of his, who ordered the death of his family.
Right. Right. Whoa.
Two movies have dealt ridiculously with the demise of the Emperor Commodus. In more recent times, Gladiator, of course, and a truly absurd 60s catastrophe called The Decline and Fall of the Roman
Roman
Empire.
Empire. Yes. I think at the time it was made,
More absurd than Gladiator.
I think it was the most expensive movie ever
It was
produced.
outrageously expensive as well as outrageously bad.
Outrageously bad. Man, in the 60s, they knew how to make movies. What happened?
Well, that was outrageously bad, though.
Right.
It was the 60s that killed the historical epic.
Ah.
You had two outrageously expensive Roman historical epics,
Mm-hmm.
one about Cleopatra
Yep.
and one Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, both outrageously expensive, both outrageously bad, and it ended the age of historical epics in
Of
Hollywood.
the sword and sandal epic.
It ended the sword and sandal historical epic. They were just too expensive, too bad. Gladiator returned to that.
Mm-hmm.
My own opinion is well, again, it was less violent to history than the 60s catastrophe,
Yep.
but it was violent enough to history.
What's your opinion of what happens inside Hollywood when it actually comes down to producing a script?
Well, I have no idea, of course.
Hmm.
I have no
Interesting. We'll
idea.
have to get Joseph Sasanka back on here. Yeah.
I have no idea. It's just, uh, again, I'm amazed sometimes at how painstaking they can be with details of historical costume. Sorry.
Yeah, you made me laugh. Yeah, we've talked about this before. I told you about how on Titanic, in when they produced Titanic, 1997, so they would have made it probably in 1996. They went and found the company, the rug company that had made the rugs for the original Titanic. And James Cameron, the director, insisted that the rugs for his reproduction of the Titanic, James Cameron insisted that the rugs be produced by the same company, as if anyone
That's right.
would notice.
And they told the story of the ship sinking punctiliously enough, but they had to connect it to an absurd melodrama.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the point that got me laughing, actually laughing in the movie theater.
Oh, you went and saw it in the movie theater.
I
Ah,
laughed when you've got the ship sinking and they need the extra drama of a chase with a gun.
yes. Right.
You don't need any extra drama at that point.
Right. The Titanic is sinking.
Yes.
Yes. That is a trope in Hollywood that death is clearly on the line for everybody, and yet the villain insists on chasing the hero with some weapon.
Yes.
Right. Even
Yes.
though clearly the whole essentially your world is falling down around you. And the idea of self-preservation doesn't seem to cross the villain's mind.
That's right. He's obsessed.
He's obsessed. Well, I suppose that happens in real life from
Well,
time to time,
not
but
as obsessed with being Hercules
yeah, obsession does happen. Hmm.
and being a gladiator.
But that's fun. Yeah, the Titanic is sinking. That's drama enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, but yeah, a gladiator. Um, what was your comment? We were speaking about it earlier. You said, well, if we're going to tell a story like this, why not just set the story in space,
That's what I mean.
dress them up in
Yeah,
dress them up in ridiculous costumes and call them Paul Atreides or Luke Skywalker.
exactly. Or you want to do if you want it to be vaguely Roman, just make up your names, some
Mm,
fictional. Don't attach it to historical events if you want to tell your own story.
yep.
But as I say, you really can take, and Dumas did in The Three Musketeers, you can take your story, plug it, and plug it into historical events, just with some adjustments,
Mm,
with some for the sake of the drama, but not doing violence to the history. So it's a historical novel. In the case of his novel, you could have a historical movie. There have been a few, very few. It's not a history lesson. It's still a novel. It's still a movie,
right.
but it's drama that actually respects the historical context.
And doesn't and to which I hear you saying an intelligent audience should have their understanding of history
They might actually learn something.
augmented,
So, yeah,
rounded out, or
or
even improved.
yeah, or stirred.
Yeah.
Because
But as it is, anyone who's seen Gladiator might have a really
knows
goofy
nothing
idea.
about Roman history.
Well, worse than nothing. They might have
Worse than
ideas about
well,
Roman
there's many
history.
absurdities about it. Empire versus Republic is one absurdity that wasn't a question.
Right.
180. Senators representing the people. Good grief. Uh, you might, if you want to make any modern comparison, you might compare the Senate to the House of Lords,
Hmm.
especially the House of Lords as it was a generation ago.
Where the best interest of the plebs was not really
But you
what.
still had hereditary peers.
Hmm.
They still exist, but hereditary peers are still in the House of Lords voting.
Yep.
So this mixture of hereditary, but also reward for public service. And that was the Roman Senate. Heredity, there were senatorial families, but also reward for public service. After a highly successful career, you could reasonably, of public service, you could reasonably expect an appointment to the Senate.
Hmm. Right.
Certainly, they didn't represent the people. That was a little genuflection in the direction of American sentiment.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't help anyone's vision of what, it doesn't
Rome
help
actually
anyone's
was.
understanding of how the Roman Empire actually worked.
Right. Well, I guess the real trouble here is that if people go through their life convinced that people from 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years, 3,000 years ago, heck, 100 years ago, if modern people go through life convinced that people from other historical epochs had the same vision of the world that we do,
There are obviously similarities,
right? We're still human.
different, still human. That's why the drama works. The elements of drama are pretty constant,
Hmm.
uh, but very different political philosophy. some religious continuities, but there was no way that a Hollywood movie, especially under Ridley Scott, would touch on that.
Hmm.
But you could go to Rome in the second century, and if you knew where to go, you could find the Eucharist being celebrated.
Uh-huh.
You could find Christians there.
Yep.
Uh, he was going to touch that with a 10-foot storyboard.
All right.
It wasn't particularly, it's not particularly central to the story of Commodus either. He knew about Christians. As I said, he left them alone, mainly because I think he figured if his father hated them, there had to be something good about them. Uh, his chief mistress flirted with Christianity.
Hmm.
Problem was, she was given to understand that she couldn't become a Christian and continue being the emperor's chief mistress.
And therefore, being alive
And powerful.
and oh, okay.
There's a kind of power.
You
She,
can sway.
she had to be careful about it.
Yeah, but you had a chance to
Yeah.
sway the emperor's motives, intentions, actions.
Although Commodus was particularly difficult to sway. He was unpredictable, increasingly so as time went on. You know, if you're unstable at 18 and there's nothing to correct it, you're going to become more unstable.
And then you layer on being a trillionaire and commander in chief of the most powerful army on the planet.
Yes, trillionaire and commander in chief of a massive army at 18.
Right. A normal unstable 18-year-old with nothing to correct will become more unstable. But then you
You're
layer
already
on,
thinking of the reincarnation of Hercules.
yes. Sorry, Ridley Scott. I did not mean to pile on your movie in particular. In particular, well, I sort of did. Yeah. Did you see the new Napoleon movie?
I could not bring myself
You
to.
couldn't bring yourself.
Yes,
The French went after it with
I heard that.
particular Gallic glee. Yeah. They had memes on the internet that said we're auditioning for Ridley Scott's next historical project, and they had they had men dressed up as Roman legionaries running around with submachine guns. Yeah.
Yes, there were some Roman people, some aficionados of Roman history did something similar
Hmm.
about Gladiator.
Uh-huh. Oh, back in the day.
Yes, it's so historically accurate. We have Roman soldiers running around with submachine guns.
Right. Right. No, yeah. Yeah.
One that is more historically accurate because it stuck pretty close, not to a novel, but to a bit of narrative history,
Hmm.
is The Duel.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. I haven't seen it.
I think it's worth watching. I was impressed. It stuck close to, again, not a novel, but a piece of narrative history. The
Okay.
Last Duel,
We
Eric
can
Yeager.
uh we can show it to the camera here, real.
That's right.
Yeah. Eric Yager?
Yes, Yeager.
Jaeger. Okay. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but
Uh,
okay. The Last Duel.
it's a fun piece of narrative history.
Uh-huh.
It got the attention of movie makers, and the movie stuck close enough to the narrative history that it's actually a good historical movie.
This is the movie with it's Matt Damon
Yes.
and Jodie Comer.
Yeah.
And is it who's the third lead?
Well, you asked me actors. Yeah.
Uh Ben
There's a
Affleck?
gap in my, yeah.
Ben Affleck.
You get the gaps in my knowledge. It was a considerable scandal of the very end of the 14th century in Paris. Uh, Judicial duels had been fading, and the movie indicates this without getting into the details, and it's not a history lesson. Judicial duels had been fading ever since the Fourth Lateran Council, which the movie doesn't mention. Fourth Lateran Council of 1215, uh, the church formally ruled that the basis for judicial duels and other ordeals is theologically unsound. So the basis of those was the assumption that God would intervene to make sure the just side won. His theological criticism of that had grown more intense over the years. Uh, where does the Bible suggest that God will do that? Uh, as one scholar, Carolingian scholar, centuries earlier, put it, if that were the case, then Herod would not have beheaded John, but John would have beheaded Herod. Uh, Also, it was critiqued as a blasphemous idea. We are telling God what he is going to do.
Right. We're going to have a duel, and God, you'd better step in.
Makes the right side wins.
Right.
This is presumption.
Hmm.
We ask for God's guidance, but we do not tell him, you will show us. So in 1215, the Fourth Lateran Council formally repudiated uh, the ideological structure
Hmm.
behind judicial ordeals, especially trial by combat. Uh, this is huge, by the way, because this was a common practice.
How common? Like this is something that would have happened on a monthly basis in the French court or the English court, or
Yes, in county courts, it wasn't just at the royal court. There was I ran across a man who gave thanks very beginning of the 13th century, man in England. So shortly before the Fourth Lateran Council, man in England who gave thanks to Thomas Becket for having come through a judicial ordeal. He purchased a horse without witnesses. Later on, I suppose it'd be like purchasing a horse without a bill of sale. The owner of the horse, big, strong man, used to beating people up. The owner of the horse then claimed that this man stole the horse. So the ordeal existed to deal with those situations where there was some evidence a crime had been committed. This man is in fact in possession of that horse.
yes.
That's a fact. So maybe he stole it, but there's no witness to him stealing it. He says he bought it. The other guy says he stole it. There are no witnesses. However, he does have the horse that did in fact belong to this other man.
Hmm.
So you've got some reason to believe the charge, but nothing conclusive. The ordeal stepped in. So the court ruled that the two men, they were not nobles, so they did not fight with sword and shield. They were to fight with big sticks. And the two men were given 2 weeks to get themselves in fighting shape.
Hmm.
And then they met to beat each other till one of them begged for mercy uh, and confessed either that he was a thief or that he committed perjury. So it was common enough that it could happen in cases of horse theft.
Ah,
Uh,
how did that particular story end?
as I said, that man made a thanks offering. This is how we know about it. Made a thanks offering at the shrine of St. Thomas Becket because before he launched his 2 weeks of training,
Hmm.
he made a pilgrimage there
Okay.
and regarded his other man as much bigger, much stronger. Uh, and he had no particular experience.
With with pointy sticks.
Sticks.
To
He had
to
no.
reference another historical figure of British history. Yeah.
He had
But
no.
what about pointed sticks?
He had no. So common. It's very striking then how bold Pope Innocent III's Fourth Lateran Council was in saying no,
No more
no
duels.
more duels or other ordeals.
Uh-huh.
They
Wait, so the smaller man won.
the smaller men won.
Are there any eyewitness accounts of how he pulled that off?
No, We just
Oh, there's a story
we
there.
just have his thanks offering at the shrine of St. Thomas Becket is he regarded as miraculous.
Hmm.
The smaller guy did win. Um, so it was very common. It happened at the level of county courts and
Hmm.
dealing with horse theft.
Okay.
Uh, the Fourth Island Council and the Third Council to pull the plug on this was startling.
Right.
The clergy obeyed, but in a warrior culture, it was deeply rooted in the laity to
Hmm.
settle some things by combat. So, but this did, by the way, it forced the introduction of juries into criminal trials in England because now there needed to be some means other than the ordeal
Hmm.
to render a verdict in cases where it wasn't obvious. Uh, Now, conscientious rulers then were caught between a cultural expectation. No, there's one case. It was, again, from England, preserved in county records. Again, early 13th century, just before the Fourth Lateran Council, where a man accused his wife's former lover of attempting to murder him. And the court agreed that there was evidence of the attempted murder, but it wasn't conclusive that this guy had arranged it. So it was settled by ordeal. Well, you can imagine. Again, they weren't nobles, so it was with big sticks. You
Mm.
can imagine how nasty that fight was.
Dear God in heaven.
Uh,
And when we say big sticks, we're talking just like a big shaft of ash.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay. And you just hit the other guy until he either fell unconscious or said, all right, all right, all right, enough.
Exactly. Uh, it was common. Fourth Island Council pulled the plug on it.
Hmm.
The clergy obeyed. Very impressive. It was one of the more impressive displays of conciliar and papal authority. But this common practice
Hmm.
was abandoned by the clergy when they were told to abandon it.
We're talking about the clergy, as in a group of men who were used to themselves hitting each other with big
Oh
sticks.
yes, you know how deeply
Man, people played hardball back then.
well you know how deeply ingrained this was in the culture.
Hmm.
150 years earlier, King Alfonso VI of Castile attempted to impose the Roman rite on Castile in place of the Mozarabic rite. Mozarabic people objected, and the king had that settled by judicial combat.
Hmm.
That's a liturgical question.
Right.
But there's a Mozarabic champion and a Roman rite champion who fought it out. That was only 150 years earlier. That's how ingrained it was.
Sure.
Now, up to the Fourth Lateran Council, there's a great deal of mounting theological discontent with this.
Yep.
So there's a background to it. It didn't come out of nowhere. Pope Innocent III's old theology professor in Paris, Peter the Chanter, had been one of the leaders of the opposition to this.
Hmm.
Uh,
That, guys, this is a little primal
it's and it's
to
up
settle intellectual questions.
and it's yeah. We should be thinking rather than fighting to solve this. And it's a form of blasphemy. As I
Mm.
said, we're saying to God, "You will do this for us." Uh, so Fourth Island Council pulled the plug on the clergy, but it was deeply ingrained in the laity.
Uh-huh.
It led to the introduction of jury trial in England as a replacement for the ordeal
Hmm.
to try and reach a verdict where the matter wasn't obvious. But conscientious kings, even conscientious kings, felt they couldn't abolish it completely. So in England, if someone was willing to make a personal accusation and offer to settle it by combat,
Hmm.
and the accused was willing to make a personal denial and offer to settle it by combat, judicial combat could still occur. that wasn't abolished until the early 19th century. Hadn't happened for 3 centuries by then, but it was still on the books. And Parliament was forced into action when some clever criminal actually appealed to that.
Really?
Um,
There's another good story there.
there's another good story there. Now in France, St. Louis,
The ninth?
the Saint, yeah, Louis the Ninth, he was stricter. And the last duel, the narrative history gets into this, and the movie basically depicts it. He said, that's not enough. This has been, the church has denied, the church has specifically denied that a combat will reflect divine judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's not enough that one person accuse and say, I'm willing to fight, the other person deny and say, I'm willing to fight. The court must also examine the case and conclude the following. One, beyond a reasonable doubt, the crime occurred.
Offense has been given.
Yes. So in the case of the last duel, beyond a reasonable doubt, rape occurred. One. Two, there is some reason to suppose that the accused is guilty. There's some evidence of this. Three, there is not, however, conclusive evidence of this. So if the accuser said he was willing to fight, the defender said he was willing to fight, and the court said the crime did occur, there's some reason to believe the defendant guilty, but not conclusive proof, then it could proceed. As the narrative history says, and as the movie indicates, this hadn't happened for a generation. So when it did happen, it was
A stir.
created quite a stir. And it was inconclusive. I mean, conclusive in the sense that one man ended up dead. But that's pretty conclusive.
Maybe did.
The defendant did, in fact, die.
Hmm.
But nobody felt comfortable.
Hmm. No one walked away thinking, ah, that was the best. That was the best outcome for this situation.
Everybody felt uncomfortable. It was literally the last duel. The habit of dueling continued in the nobility for a ridiculously long time. Uh, but judicial duel, that was the last one in France.
Where does this pop up? Uh, a Russian czar needed, was it Peter? Had to make specific and harsh adjustments to the military culture because all of his officers were killing each other.
War of 1812, the United States Army
Hmm.
had to intervene to stop officers challenging each other to duels.
Had to step in and be like, boys, there's plenty of enemies that way.
We're fighting the entire British Empire, gentlemen.
Right. Okay.
The great U.S. naval hero Stephen Decatur, who served under Commodore Preble.
Hmm.
Uh, the great U.S. naval hero Stephen Decatur, hero of the Barbary War, but died in a duel with a U.S. naval officer. So that culture of dueling it had its ups and downs. It persisted for a ridiculously long time.
Hmm.
Engaged in by one U.S. president before he was president. That was part of Andrew Jackson's wild background.
Yes.
But in any case, the movie did justice.
The last duel. They did it right.
They did it right. The movie did justice to narrative history. And the narrative history, it's a fun read.
Okay. We'll have to put it on both the movie list and the reading list.
I don't say narrative history I do not say that to put it as a put down. It's not academic history, so it's not written.
To be a play-by-play of what definitely happened.
Well, it's not written for scholars.
Mm-hmm.
It's written for the general public
Mm.
to tell a particular story,
Right.
but a historical story.
Yes.
And the movie Last Duel basically did justice to it. So I'm not just excoriating tonight.
Ah, all right. Well, let's see if you're up for a challenge that I've had in mind for a little while. If I name a movie Can you give a one sentence hot take
Ah!
on its historicity?
I will attempt to take a
Okay,
second.
I've got a few. Let's see. Let's just see how it goes, and then we can go back to getting into some more details. Yeah,
One sentence. Okay.
one sentence. Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, The Last of the Mohicans.
Ugh. It's a fun movie, but historical terms, not to mention combat terms. That scene where someone is carrying two 18th century muskets, one in each hand, shoots them off, and hits two opponents. Good grief.
Patriot.
Oh! Mm.
Braveheart.
Mm. Not even words. Are no words for it.
Okay.
I refrain. I restrain myself. I will not go off on the rant.
All right. We may come back to the rant
Braveheart's
on that one. Yeah. The Last Samurai.
yeah. Thumbs down,
Thumbs down.
basically. It's not in the same category of damnation, but yeah, thumbs down.
All right. Um, wow. Jeez, I'm a little nervous to continue now. Uh, Dances with Wolves.
Dance with Wolves. If someone can go away capable of uttering the words "the peaceful Sioux," it has failed as history.
The Peaceful
Now,
Sioux.
the Sioux of the time would not have regarded that as a compliment, particularly.
Hmm. Gods and Generals.
Ooh, whatever may have been its flaws as a movie, made a serious effort to respect the history.
Okay.
Enough that historians can have serious debates with each other. Serious debates. So that's a thumbs up historically.
Thumbs up historically. Okay.
Which is to say, not beyond criticism, but to the point where serious historians find it worth debating.
I see. Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Not a movie, but Band of Brothers.
Well, that's two thumbs up.
Two thumbs up.
Yeah, that was exceptionally good.
Okay. Cream of the crop historically.
Yeah, I might
Okay.
say that. Well, I mentioned The Last Duel, but as a successful drama, obviously television of movies, a successful drama and being historically reputable, yeah, it might be the cream of the crop.
Hmm.
Band of Brothers is very good.
Thin Red Line.
I'd basically give one thumbs up. Oh, no, two thumbs up, pretty much. It's not cream of the crop, but it's interesting. Oh, one sentence, so that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's funny. I'm merciful to parts of the Caribbean because it had no pretense at being historical.
Right. That's true. It made no pretense. Yes. The first one's fun.
First one was extremely good.
Yeah.
Much can be forgiven from my point of view.
Hmm.
Much can be forgiven. You're not making a pretense of being historical.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. We may have to do this again.
No, but yeah, that's actually a good example of my point. Entirely fictional character. You're not grabbing any historical characters and twisting their lives and twisting their stories.
Hmm.
It's just entirely fictional. It's a fantasy
It's a fantasy. All right. And a fairly fun one.
and a fun one.
Yeah. Did you know that when Johnny Depp won his court case against his ex-wife Amber Heard,
Oh, gee.
did you know that as in places as far away as like southern France, they played the Pirates of the Caribbean theme from like church from like the bell towers of churches to celebrate
Not.
to celebrate that Johnny Depp won his court case
I did not know that.
against Amber Heard. I can you that shows like sort of the cultural impact of Pirates of the Caribbean, but then also the sort of way in which this character, Jack Sparrow, had actually really won over the hearts and minds of the world.
Grand character.
Right, right. Very fun.
They kind of wore him out as the movies
Wow, they should have stopped. They should have stopped after at most three. But I mean, how many Pirates movies are there? I think six or something. I don't even know.
I don't know. I stopped watching.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't think I made it past two. So interesting.
I made it past three. That was
Okay.
a mistake watching number three.
Yeah. It's
We're a little off the subject.
there we are. Our ship has gone into unknown waters.
Where there be monsters.
Where there be monsters, indeed. Um, the Horatio Hornblower, those movies.
Ooh. Well, now, Master and Commander, which is
That was the next on my list.
so I'm going to use more than one sentence.
Okay.
Master Commander is a masterpiece of a movie. One that screamed for a follow-up but never got it. And yet they made 6 parts of the Caribbean, go figure.
That might be an unfortunate reflection on the state of American culture.
Master Commander was a masterpiece of a movie. It had to make one significant plot change
Mm-hmm.
for the American audience.
Yes.
Is in the novel, he's fighting Americans.
An American privateer,
An
right?
American privateer.
Yeah.
And this would not do for an American audience.
Of course not.
So they had to be.
Who are we rooting for? Yeah.
That's right. Had to become French. But masterpiece of a movie. One, and I allow them one major historical liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, let's get into that a little bit. Would it have been
based on a marvelous series of novels,
would there would
superior to their Horatio Hornblower novels. However, the novels attempted to be respectful to history.
would there have been reasonable chances of in Master and Commander, would there have been reasonable chances of finding a French privateer to actually fight at that time, or was the French Navy more or less useless by
Well, the
that
French
date?
Navy was useless.
Okay.
The French attempt, they still had privateers,
Okay.
but they were not nearly as dangerous as American privateers. Um, we,
Especially on that side of the Atlantic.
special in the Pacific Ocean,
Right.
yeah, that was, our privateers, with some help from the Navy itself, did horrible damage to the British whaling fleet.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they destroyed the British whaling fleet. So after the war, New England whalers
Took over the whaling
over
industry.
the whaling industry. So French would be possible, but yes, it was actually Americans who were busy. American privateers did serious damage. Not crushing damage, obviously, but serious damage, as estimated by insurance rates at Lloyd's of London.
Aha.
So American privateers kept maritime insurance rates moving up, which increased costs for merchants, increased costs for consumers. American privateers, with the Navy, they were a menace. And it is true, not so much that size ship, but the Americans did have the Constitution class frigates, which in the movie addresses the clever shipbuilding that made the Constitution class frigates unbeatable by British frigates, ships
In
of
terms of
conquest.
speed.
Speed and strength. There was a reason that Constitution was called Old Ironsides.
Say more about that.
Well, that pushes my nautical expertise.
Okay.
But, yeah, so a change in naval design that allowed the ship to have a thicker hull without sacrificing speed.
Okay.
Thicker hull, more guns without sacrificing speed or mobility, which meant that after some unfortunate encounters early in the war, the British Admiralty had to give instructions that frigate captains were not to indulge in duels. The point of a frigate, not a ship of the line. So a frigate didn't fight with the main fleet. The frigate was reconnaissance, it was patrol, particularly protecting your commerce from the enemy's raiders and doing some raiding itself.
So it's scout slash vanguard.
Yeah, bigger than your ordinary scouts or ordinary raiders, but able to do that.
Okay.
Uh,
But a semi-independent
yes,
arm of the.
right. It would not be. It was not a ship of the line.
Okay. A ship of the line always traveled with other ships.
It's
Okay.
the line.
The line.
Uh, the Americans knew that we could not challenge the British Navy seriously on the ocean. Great Lakes are another issue because in those days, before the building of the St. Lawrence Waterway, you could not sail naval vessels down the St. Lawrence River to the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Great Lakes are different. So there we started on even footing, just us and the British building ships, building new ships and fighting two naval battles, both of which we won, which was decisive. Duke of Wellington said that. After his victory in the Peninsula War in Spain, he was given the North American command, offered the North American command. Kind of funny, if he'd taken it, he wouldn't have been available for Waterloo.
Ah.
He was offered the American command, and he told the government, new general, new army, we don't control the lakes. And without control of the lakes, we're not going to end the war this year.
Uh-huh.
By that time, Britain had been at war almost continually for 22 years. So the government was not interested in another 2 years of the American War.
Mm.
So American victory in the Great Lakes is instrumental in persuading Britain to agree to peace. Britain was very angry. From Britain's point of view, we had stabbed them in the back. They were desperately fighting France, and we declared war in 1812. So the Times put it this way: what is our policy toward America, 1814? It can be summed up in one word: submission. Very angry, but we control the lakes. And you couldn't sail the world's greatest navy down the St. Lawrence River. Uh,
It
and
was
it
too
undid
much of a choke point.
right. The naval ships had too deep draft.
Yeah.
So, but on the high seas, we cannot oppose the British fleet. They blockaded our ports, which caused a depression naturally, deprived the government of revenue. Most of its revenue was tariffs, and there was trade coming in. Catastrophic for maritime New England.
Yes.
But silver lining was American privateers had a wonderful time.
There was so much loot out there.
So much loot out there. And the British were astonishingly slow to impose a convoy system on merchant ships.
Huh.
They hunted down American privateers, but there was so much money to be made.
It was worth the risk.
It was worth the risk.
And the privateers usually operated solo.
Solo.
I'm wondering why. I'm curious why they didn't make.
Oh, it's divvying up the loot.
Ah.
And as long as British merchant ships were reluctant to accept convoys,
Uh-huh.
solo was the way to do it.
Right.
Oh,
Because it was always one on one.
yes.
You just had to avoid the British Navy.
Just over the British Navy, unless you had the American Navy nearby.
Okay.
One on one, not always, it wasn't 100%, but one on one, you could expect an American vessel to prevail.
Because of these changes in hull design.
Hull design. They could be as fast and maneuverable as a comparable British vessel. British vessel, same class, as fast and maneuverable, but with more guns and a sturdier hull.
Two distinct advantages.
Very distinct advantages, especially given the British style, the British naval style. The French had tried to emphasize, of course, it would be very French. They tried to emphasize precise cannon fire to hit particular targets on the ship.
Right. Take out the mast.
That was a favorite.
Yes.
Not so easy to do when you're in a ship. You're trying to adjust your gun to the roll of the water. The British said, no. Admiral Nelson led the way in this. Get as close as you can within pistol shot and just hit and hit and hit and hit.
As in fire fast,
Fire
fire
fast.
faster than them.
Exactly.
Something we were talking about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the British crews are trained to do that.
Yeah, to fire fast,
Fire
which
fast.
is referenced in both Master and Commander and Horatio
Yes.
Hornblower, the endless drilling.
Endless drilling to fire fast. The Americans had the same drilling.
Okay.
So the Americans fired as fast
Mm-hmm.
with more guns
With more guns and
and a sturdier hull.
a greater ability to take
Take
damage.
damage. So uh, once you accept the movie, Master and Commander making its shift, so they're fighting the French, not the
Mm.
Americans. The
Hmm.
American audience won't be disturbed. That again, as I said, I think a historical movie can be allowed one historical leap for dramatic purposes.
And box office purposes too, I suppose.
The American audience is not going to watch the Americans get beat up at the end.
Mm, most likely not.
Most likely not.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good movie.
It's a very good movie. Exceptional. And again, that gets the two thumbs up historically.
Mm. Man, I am so pumped to watch Master and Commander again in the near future.
You should.
Yeah.
It should be watched fairly regularly.
Yes. Yes. That's a movie that bears up to multiple viewings. It's too bad they didn't get a series of them going. Well, on the other hand,
Series often go badly.
series often go badly. Maybe one done well is better than four done increasingly poorly.
Poorly.
You know,
The
that
Fate Departs the Caribbean.
the fate of pirate. Oh, God almighty. Oh, why? Why? Number two, even number two is not bad.
No, it's not.
Number three, though, oh,
So
it's getting ridiculous. And then four or five, and I
I
think
never
it,
submitted to
yeah, yeah, it's like The Hobbit. I haven't even bothered. Yeah, just can't bring myself to do it.
historical movies.
Historical movies. Yeah, Master and Commander. Uh, okay. Dances with Wolves. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
If you can accept, all right, if you can accept the fact the movie decided to ignore any wider context, and you can accept the fact it decided to depict an impressive warrior culture as somehow peace loving. If you accept that, it's an impressive movie. I think there are two very big leaps.
Ah,
It's a tragic story that the movie is set in the background of the U.S. Army's Civil War era campaigns against the Dakota, I'm sorry, the Eastern Dakota, the Eastern Sioux, arising from a tragic, terrible explosion in Minnesota. Not regular army, of course, this is Civil War, so almost always volunteer troops, mainly from Minnesota, but also Wisconsin, about half Minnesota, also Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio, they must have been surprised. Uh, Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, mainly volunteer troops. Uh, One Minnesota volunteer regiment captured by the Confederates at Stone River
uh-huh.
was actually paroled by the Confederates on the condition that they never fight the Confederates again. So that Minnesota regiment was sent to fight the Sioux. Uh, as Minnesota developed, there was a great deal of pressure on the Eastern Dakota, the Eastern Sioux, great deal of pressure. Uh, that pressure was accompanied by significantly incompetent government policy. Uh, so, in theory, they were to be fairly well fed. In practice, partly through corruption, mainly through just sheer incompetence, this is not done. And as Minnesota settlements built up. The racial ethnic tension became unbearable. Uh, one day, some young braves had an argument with some whites and they killed them. And then other young braves went berserk. So in one day, it's quite a thing to think about. One day, 400, 400 white settlers were killed.
400.
400 in one day. Big episode. 400 were killed.
By how many? How, like by a band of what? 30,
Oh,
40,
much more than that.
200?
It spread.
Okay.
And even it confronted someone like Little Crow, the most prominent of the chiefs, confronted him with a problem, terrible dilemma. Do I go along with what my warriors are doing? Or do I try and oppose them, even though it's gone beyond the point, quickly went beyond the point, or I can try and oppose them? Um, so as the uprising developed, 400 were killed on the first day. 400. 200 captured. Maybe 1,000 or so fled. There was a major upheaval on the frontier. Over the next couple of weeks, the death toll reached 800. Prisoners about half that. Uh, there was an assault on Fort Ridgely. Very rare. Old Westerns like to show Indian assaults on forts, extremely rare. One of the few times it actually did happen was Fort Ridgely. Uh, old movies, old Westerns. I like to show Indian assaults in towns, also extremely rare. One of the few times it did happen was in New Ulm. Little Crow probably had something like 800 warriors, not commanding them, that's never the right word to use with that culture. They were under his leadership, but not really under his control.
Interesting.
Uh, so he was not able to use them just to attack Fort Ridgely or just to attack New Ulm. They split up according to what different warriors wanted. So both attacks failed. Wild fighting at New Ulm, because that was an attack on a town, basically defended by its population and people from the neighboring towns, largely German, as you might guess from the name New Ulm. Um,
And they were serious because they knew this wasn't a raid for
right,
cattle or
right. Their
resources.
back was against the wall.
This was a fight to the
It was
death.
a fight to the death. It was a nasty battle. Uh, After 2 weeks, things settled down, but by that time, 800 whites had been killed, a couple thousand had fled. The state of Minnesota was incensed, as you might imagine. So a column of a campaign of retribution was launched. Problem was keeping the retribution under control. As you attack one group of Sioux or Dakota, some of their relatives are going to be there. And if you keep trying to pursue the people you're after, but they've joined some of their relatives, so the campaign stretched out of Minnesota into the Dakotas, and it became a general war against all of the Sioux and all of the Dakota. Uh, they were effectively driven from Minnesota. Um, most of the captive whites were recovered. Large numbers of Sioux were captured. Uh, Governor of Minnesota refused to allow summary executions, but he did authorize trials, and about 300 were convicted and sentenced to death. The Episcopal Bishop of Minnesota, Bishop Whipple, interceded with President Lincoln. And in the middle of the Civil War, President Lincoln took the trouble to review the court proceedings for 300. And he commuted the sentences of all except 80 for whom there was reliable eyewitness testimony that they had murdered people,
Mm-hmm.
that they personally had murdered someone.
Right.
So in the end, mercifully, the mass execution was only 80. So the movie Dances with Wolves doesn't address any of that, which is somewhat annoying, frankly.
It does address Kevin Costner's hair.
It does address Kevin Costner's hair at painful length, and you have extended scenes of Kevin Costner looking astonished. And he's very good at looking astonished. Um, but doesn't address any of the backgrounds. It just has somehow mysteriously U.S. soldiers are
Fighting Sioux and Dakota Indians.
no interest in the background. It doesn't have to be interested in the background, I suppose, to make the movie, but it's painful. It doesn't do justice to the intricacy and intimacy of the lethal troubles between white settlers and the Dakota. There was no way after those massacres, 800 white settlers were killed, 400 on the first day. There was no way that Minnesota would accept anything short of crushing the Sioux.
Right. Heads had to roll.
Heads had to roll, which meant the war escalated.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the Eastern Sioux directly involved, all of them.
What was the essential tension? Is that the settlers were turning hunting ground into agricultural land?
Yes, the government attempted to manage it, but managed it poorly.
Okay.
Attempted to manage it through treaties and sales, but the treaties and the sales hinged on uh, adequate police to prevent trespassing on either side
Mm-hmm.
and all the hostilities that went with the trespassing, and hinged on adequate supplies uh, to the tribes, and also an adequate force to, to deter
Yes.
violence. The smartest of the mountain men, Broken Hand Fitzpatrick, told the government that. Early 1850s, the government was deciding to take its Western responsibilities seriously for the first time ever since George Washington. Um, and he told them, you need an annuity and an army. An annuity, you need to make sure that every year the tribes, especially their leaders, uh, no group of human beings is exempt from a certain form of bribery. Make sure the tribes and especially the leaders get some nice goodies. Make sure that happens every year. They're adequately fed with some nice extras, and make sure you have an adequate army so that there's no
Carrot and stick.
carrot and stick. If there's an adequate army, there's less chance of having to use it because there won't be the thought of rebellion.
Right.
In the case of the Minnesota Rising of 1862, the only immediately available troops were 100 men at Fort Ridgely. That was not enough to deter the uprising. In the end, one column from Fort Ridgely hastily marched out and was ambushed on in the first couple of days of the uprising. The remnant battle had desperately defended the fort, wouldn't have been able to defend it without artillery.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, anyway, desperate fighting, Fort Ridgely and New Ulm, considerable massacre. And after that, the population of Minnesota would not accept anything short of absolute victory.
Right. Because these were cousins and,
Exactly.
well, frankly, probably closer than that. Sisters, brothers,
Many cases,
mothers and fathers and cousins.
especially on the frontier. 800 killed.
Everyone knew someone
Everyone knew someone
that, in their minds, had been absolutely unjustly murdered.
in their minds.
Right.
And they were murdered. They had been murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them, great majority of them, basically innocent.
Right. Right. The great majority of them having nothing to do with the policy of the American government
Exactly.
towards the tribes.
And of course, the uprising in the end, it did inevitably make things worse.
Hmm.
Make things worse. The tribes, there's no way that, as I said, no way after that that Minnesota would accept. Federal government could be more restrained. I described President Lincoln's action.
Hmm.
But
But even President Lincoln would have recognized someone's
the ones who were,
someone's got to take the fall for this.
yes, he limited it to those, as I said, those for whom there was eyewitness testimony
Uh-huh.
that they had murdered someone.
Right.
So he limited it, cut down the number considerably. But yes, there had to be retribution. Some people consider it as part of the Civil War, and certainly it was part of Union propaganda
Hmm.
that the Confederates are behind this. There's no evidence of this.
Hmm.
To the extent that there was any connection to the Civil War, it was simply the tribesmen noticing that the regular army was gone
Hmm.
and was replaced by a few kind of dodgy Minnesota volunteers.
Dodgy. That's a good word. Yeah.
So they got hardened. Their attitudes hardened a lot. That's what happened in the first couple of days.
Hmm.
And there was a hardened a lot. Uh, one reason not to do atrocities. It hardens the opposition against you.
Mm. Yeah.
And then just in terms of experience, they were hardened by the succeeding campaign,
Mm. Ah, okay.
which led them deep into the Dakotas.
Okay. So it actually turned them into pretty serious soldiers.
They're pretty serious soldiers.
Interesting. Have you read or
The war
seen
expanded
Killers
so
of the Flower?
such that by 1864, it was called the Bloody Year on the Plains. So it started in Minnesota, Dakota, became an issue for the Overland Trail passing through what's now Wyoming.
Hmm.
And one young officer of, I think, the 11th Ohio was killed at the Platte River Station. So the Platte River Station was named after him. And today we know it as the town of
I don't know.
Casper.
Casper.
First Lieutenant Casper Collins. His father was Colonel of the 11th Ohio, and Fort Collins named after him. So the war escalated.
Hmm.
The Army found it difficult, and there's a volunteer army, right?
Yep.
Overwhelmingly, and found it difficult to distinguish different tribes from the others, and it was difficult to. Then they also intermingled with each other in any case.
Hmm.
So the counterattack on the Eastern Sioux became a war against all the Sioux, and that by 1864 turned into a general conflict across the plains. Being tribes in Colorado that mostly tried to stay out of it were dragged into it by the panicking governor, Territorial Governor Evans, who was convinced that they were going to send upon Denver any day and
Ah,
scalp him.
right. Well, if they've attacked people in Minnesota, this different tribe here in Colorado will
That's
probably
right.
attack us.
He pestered Washington with so many letters. Washington told General Samuel Curtis, whose military district commanded a ridiculous area
Hmm.
from from western Missouri all the way to the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
And so he sent a staff officer to Colorado try and figure out what's going on. The staff officer said there's not an Indian war in Colorado, but there's going to be one if we don't restrain the governor and the military commander.
Ah, so this staff officer was actually insightful.
He was insightful. There's going to be one uh, because the governor has persuaded the governor has allowed the military commander in Colorado to send out very aggressive patrols. These very aggressive patrols they are not discriminating. At the slightest suspicion, they will attack. The military commander in Colorado before the war was a Methodist preacher, famous for being devoted, fiercely opposed to slavery, and fiercely loyal to the Union. Gigantic Methodist preacher, very physically powerful with an impressive voice. John Shivington. He was offered chaplaincy of the Colorado Volunteers. He said no, he wanted a field commission. He was made lieutenant colonel of the 1st Colorado Volunteer Cavalry. Played a role, important role in the Battle of Glorieta Pass that helped end the Texan invasion of New Mexico. He was promoted volunteer colonel, put in charge of Colorado, and gradually lost his mind.
Shivington lost his mind.
Someone described him as a crazy preacher who thinks he's Napoleon Bonaparte. Became more and more convinced that the cause of the Union was the cause of God. The cause of the United States government was the cause of God. If you were at all opposed to the United States government,
you're opposed to the manifest will of God in this country.
God himself. The tribes in Colorado were resistant to the government's request that they accept reservations. Therefore, resisting the United States government, they're resisting God, and they are to be squashed. So famously, against the advice of the local military commander, Major Anthony, famously Colonel Shivington and the 3rd Colorado Volunteers attacked the encampment, mainly Cheyennes, at Sand Creek. Unprepared, actually humiliatingly flying an American flag to show that they meant to be cooperative. But Colonel Shivington attacked anyway. Killed hundreds. Well-documented accounts. Deliberately killing women and children in the course of the attack. After that, he had his Indian War. The tribes of Colorado felt exactly the same way that the whites of Minnesota felt.
We really have been wronged here.
Yes. And there's no way that this can end except by driving the whites out of Colorado.
Right, of course. Right. How could you conclude otherwise?
Well, look what they just did.
Right. We tried to be as cooperative as possible.
We were flying their flag.
Right.
And this is what happened. So, yes, he got his Indian War.
He got the thing he wanted.
Got what he wanted. And
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy. It helped turn 1864 into the bloody year on the plains. As the Western situation completely escaped control of the government, that, in fairness, was busy fighting the Civil War, devoting its main attention to that. But so when I say that Dances with Wolves would have benefited from context, it's not a context of just of, tribal attacks on white settlers. It was a context of a comprehensive breakdown in relations.
Right.
Lack of, on the tribal side, the Plains Indians practiced a form of democracy so extreme that even to Americanize it looked like anarchy. We kept thinking you make treaties, but there's not a government to make treaties with.
There's no one. There's no one to talk to. There's no counterparty.
Who's in charge?
Right. Right. We don't know. You don't know. Right.
But on one side, no one was really in charge. The leaders chiefs had varying degrees of prestige.
Uh-huh.
And followers, they counted for something, but it's not like they could give orders.
Ah,
Uh,
you had fans. You
exactly.
didn't have subjects.
Subjects. Exactly. Form of democracy so extreme that even to Americanize it, like anarchy,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't kind of like Tolkien's hobbits. Uh, they didn't need much in the way of law
Mm-hmm.
because they obeyed their traditions so faithfully.
I see.
But when it comes to practical decisions, this can be a severe handicap.
Yes.
Are we at war? Are we at peace? If we're at peace, what are the peace terms?
Uh,
If we're at war, are we going to attack this place or this place?
this was no one person's decision.
No one person,
Ever.
and really no one's decision.
Right. It's everybody's decision.
Everybody's decision, which could lead to things like I said in the attack on Little Crow did not command 800 warriors. He had 800 following him, but he couldn't make them concentrate in Fort Ridgely or on New Ulm. They just went to both places.
Hmm.
So after desperate fighting, both places survived.
And this culture didn't have any ability to say, man, we're not really winning the fights we could because of this extreme tradition we have.
Right. As one military historian put it, in most cases, exceptions, famously the Battle of Little Bighorn,
Mm-hmm.
exceptional leadership on that day that was exceptionally listened to. And that's a
Mm.
personal quality. That says something about the personal charisma of Crazy Horse. Uh, but as one historian put it, in most cases, good warriors will be whipped by mediocre soldiers. Because the good warriors are all doing they're good individually, but they're all doing their own thing.
Right.
And the soldiers are operating with some discipline, some coordination, some plan.
Mm-hmm.
So in most cases, mediocre soldiers, and in most cases, our soldiers were mediocre. They didn't have the personal skills of the Indian warriors, certainly not on horseback.
Right.
Mediocre soldiers will prevail,
One on one, it would be a laughable contest.
especially on horseback.
Right.
Absolutely laughable.
Right. But 100 versus 100, you've got 100 people versus, you've got 100 people versus one person, one, 100 at
A
it,
hundred times,
100
yes.
times. Yeah.
Uh, but with huge emotional energy, because all the tribes on the plains knew about what happened at Sand Creek.
Mm-hmm.
All white settlers knew about what happened in Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
Huge emotional energy, hostile emotional energy,
Hmm.
very hard even for the most resolute leaders to overcome.
Right.
Colonel Shivington, volunteer colonel, not regular army. That meant that by the time the army completed its investigation and decided that he was, as a later generation would say, a war criminal, he had mustered out of the army with the end of the Civil War beyond military jurisdiction. And he was not prosecuted by civilian authorities in Colorado. So he was never held to account for Sand Creek. The only bit of justice is that two bits. He could not return to being a Methodist preacher after that. And his political career was over.
Right. Yeah. Damn. Okay. We have to get a Braveheart, but let's take a quick break.
Yes, I need to break for Braveheart.
And we're back.
Back.
All right. We've gone after Gladiator without mercy. We've praised Master and Commander to the skies
with good reason.
with with good reason. Very good reason. We've I think we've done justice to Dances with Wolves.
Justice.
Justice. What justice is due to Braveheart?
He
Poor Mel Gibson. He really does try hard.
just,
He does try hard.
well, that too, a decision was made. I don't understand it. I really don't. Decision was made to take a remarkable character with a remarkable life and completely fictionalize it. Why? It's already remarkable. Why fictionalize it? Completely fictionalize it. So completely that the movie suggested a romantic relationship between William Wallace and Princess Isabel, who was, I think, 7 when he died.
When he died,
Yes.
and he died in his 20s, correct? Or 30s?
Like past 30, yeah.
Okay.
Remarkable life, full of adventure, with just a little bit, I'm repeating myself, but some adjustments for the sake of thematic cohesion.
Hmm.
Could have made a wonderful story. Could have told a wonderful story. It's an amazing life. But instead, completely fictionalized it.
Hmm.
Comprehensively. Comprehensively. From decking him out with bizarre blue paint.
Which would have passed out of usage
Was it
a thousand years earlier.
that got the bloody hell from me. It's
You were in theaters, no doubt.
I was.
And the theater had the privilege of hearing James
Bloody
Schumacher say, bloody hell.
Don't more the damn blue paint for 1,000 years. Respectable lowland family of the gentry class. Uh, why the blazes are you putting him in a kilt?
Oh, say more about that. Kilts would have been.
Well, the kilts were for barbaric Highlanders.
Uh-huh.
To this day, there's a undeniable geographic difference between the lowlands of Scotland and the Highlands. Very different geography. At that time, totally different culture. William Wallace, historically, was a man of the lowlands. English is his native language. Some acquaintance with French since his family was gentry class. His older brother was a knight. William Wallace, younger brother, they tried to steer him toward the clergy.
He was not cut for the
He
cloth.
was not cut out for the cloth. Big, powerful, violent tendencies. English intervention. Yes, the English intervention in Scotland gave him the opportunity to indulge those violent tendencies. The movie, it's not, movies are not history lessons. I have to remind myself of this, but it is annoying, frankly, that the English intervention was depicted as just a mysterious act of aggression on the part of King Edward. It was an act of aggression, but hardly mysterious. Who is the new King of Scots, the old royal line having died out? King Alexander IV, having rid himself off a cliff at night, anxious to have a rendezvous with his new bride.
Oops.
But riding out on a dark and stormy night was not the best way to do it. Uh,
He kept her up waiting,
he
apparently.
kept her up waiting.
He rode off a cliff.
His infant daughter was in Norway, and she was being shipped back to Scotland. After his death, she was shipped back to Scotland. King Edward had arranged diplomatically that she would marry his son Edward, future Edward III, but she died shortly after
As an infant or
as a little girl.
uh,
So who's the new King of Scots? King Edward had a reasonable legal claim, not beyond argument, But he had a reasonable legal claim to being overlord of Scotland, debatable, but defensible. As overlord of Scotland, he could judge the case, who's king of Scotland. But he went beyond even arguable legal rights
Hmm.
uh, and started to insert English garrisons in Scotland, treating it not as a subordinate country, which is arguable, but the case could be made, and lengthy debate about historical precedents. Both sides sent elaborate letters to the Pope about this. Um, and he went beyond that, treating it not as a subordinate kingdom, but as a subject kingdom,
As an occupied territory.
occupied territory. Oblivious, oblivious to the fact that at that very moment he was furious, the King of France, for treating Gascony that way, for treating Aquitaine that way. Uh, the English king, for complicated historical reasons, too complicated again to get into here, the English king was simultaneously Duke of Aquitaine in France,
Hmm.
uh, by tradition, and a highly autonomous duchy in France. The King of France, undoubtedly the overlord. But the royal French government, the French crown kept pushing that, uh,
Throwing its weight around.
throwing its weight around, sending French officials to do things in Aquitaine, uh, occasionally planning a garrison, provoked war. King Edward the First, he didn't see that what he objected to in Aquitaine was what he was doing
Right.
in Scotland.
Yes. Huh.
So the context wasn't there. That always bothers me a little bit. The movie just starts by saying the evil English are here. Why are they here? Because they're evil. A little too cartoon-like for me. I think some brief, too cartoon-like. And then, yeah, so who's King of Scots?
It's a little too Star Wars.
Star Wars. That's what started it. And William Wallace was one of the Scots who refused to cooperate. If you thought, however, that Edward might recognize you as King of Scots, ooh, then you'd reason to cooperate. Hence the ambiguous position of the Bruce. And where the hell did the movie decide to make the elder Bruce a leper? Where did that come from?
I
They
don't
just
know.
decided to be nice and dramatic.
Hmm.
That was the ambiguity. That's where the ambiguity of the Bruce came from, because the Bruces had a claim, far from indisputable, but they had a claim to the throne, so they had reason to try and be nice with Edward, as did their opponent, the John Balliol, with the Cummin or Cummings family behind him. These are complications, movies out of history lesson, I repeat, but there's a lot of dramatic potential there.
Yes.
But the movie decided to make it evil English and some evil Scotsmen who collaborate with them.
Right. When in fact, these are rather complicated prudential matters.
Yes.
Okay. There,
And I said,
there are the questions of how people would have dressed, what weapons they would have used, whether or not they would have used woad,
yeah,
but then also the political side.
the political side is, I addressed that to some degree. It was fascinating moments. Uh, the younger Bruce, Robert, who'd eventually be king, was it a split in the Bruce family, or was the family? Sometimes families did this. Well, make sure there's a member of the family on each side, so that No matter what happens, the family won't be completely wiped out. Younger Bruce quickly associated himself uh, with the Scots resistance without completely cutting ties with Edward. Still kind of hoped that Edward recognized him as king.
Hmm.
Mostly the Scots resistance was associated with Cummin, the Cummings family that had backed John Balliol, who was recognized as king, but was then so bullied by Edward. Again, he did not treat Scotland as a subordinate kingdom, which would have been arguable, but he treated it like part of England. So he had the audacity to summon a king of Scots for trial in London. Audacity. Outrageous. Even John Balliol, poor man put in an impossible position, would not accept this. So then Edward invaded, and instead of awarding the crown to the Bruce, he declared Scotland confiscated. And that's when all hell broke loose. Andrew Moray leading the resistance in the north. The movie ignores the existence of Andrew Moray, of course, because it all has to be William Wallace. William Wallace having moved from brigand to guerrilla leader in the South. Jointly, Wallace and Moray commanded the Scots army that won the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Naturally, the movie leaves the bridge out of the Battle of Stirling, but the bridge is the whole point of it. That the English force was cut half across the bridge and half not. So a quick attack cut off the bridge, and then the force that had already crossed was wiped out
On the bridge, or is it on the other side
on
of
the
it?
other side.
Okay. So they cut off the bridge and then just murdered the vanguard, if you will.
Wiped out the vanguard.
Wiped out the vanguard.
Wiped out
Okay.
the vanguard. Which paradoxically may have saved Edward the First politically. Some people enjoy the drama of politics. Movies miss this. But Edward the First had stumbled into a confrontation with his nobles and the church simultaneously.
Edward wasn't much of a diplomat, was he?
He's not. He was pretty scary, though. There was an Archbishop of York who had a fatal heart attack while Edward the First was shouting at him once. He could be that intimidating. Archbishop Peckham of Canterbury, however, was not so easily intimidated. And he did not have a fatal heart attack when Edward was mad at him. The church was tired of the royal taxes. The nobles were tired of the royal taxes, and they both felt that the king was not doing, and with good reason, that the king was not fulfilling the Magna Carta promise that taxes would be imposed by the consent of the realm, which by that time meant Parliament.
I see.
Not Parliament as it exists today, but Parliament. Edward was not doing this. So they were saying no. In particular, the nobles objected to his saying that they can be commanded to go to war in Scotland or in Aquitaine. They insisted that their feudal duty was to defend England.
Not beyond your foreign campaigns.
Exactly. So beyond that, you have to have volunteers. And you get volunteers if you pay. We're only obliged to defend England at our own expense. Possibly apocryphal. He is supposed to have said to the Earl Marshal, the Earl of Norfolk, supposed to have commanded him to go to Aquitaine. And he is supposed to have said no. And Edward is supposed to have said, Sir Marshal, you will either go or hang. And the Marshal said, by the same oath, Lord King, I will neither go nor hang. So he was in collision course with the church and the nobles. He didn't know how to get off. He knew he'd made a mistake, that he pushed too hard and provoked too much resistance
At home.
at home, whilst fighting a two-front war. The war that the king, that Philip the Fair of France provoked with him in Aquitaine, and the war that he provoked in Scotland. Uh, he didn't know how to get off his high horse, however, he needed to save royal face. William Wallace solved his problem. He won too big at Stirling Bridge. Unpleasant, long drawn out guerrilla war with the English nobles not wanting to go to Scotland. That would have degraded Edward's political position. But this was a national humiliation.
William Wallace won too big of a victory not to incite some English pride.
Right. So, and he followed up the victory by raiding northern England.
Ah,
Yet the movie absurdly has him capturing York. He couldn't even dream of capturing Carlisle or Durham, let alone York. Where the hell does this come from? He was in no condition to take fortified places, but lots of raiding of villages and unpleasant stuff. You know, English did unpleasant stuff in Scotland, but unpleasant and magnified by propaganda, of course, but it was unpleasant. That was a mistake on Wallace's part. It felt good.
Wallace stole too many cattle and killed too many unarmed
Yeah,
civilians.
exactly. So that meant that Edward and the nobles and the church, the English church, they could all save face. They could compromise with each other. Edward on one side, the nobles of the church on the other. They could compromise without obviously humiliating themselves because they could say, we've got to pull together
And go get William Wallace.
and save England. Oh, Edward's propaganda was ripe. Wallace and the French. His propaganda against the French reached the point of absurd. He would tell the English people that they mean to wipe out our language. Our language! He was mainly French speaking, but it's interesting that he felt that would be useful propaganda. It's a sign of the degree to which even the nobles of England by that stage had become English speaking.
Interesting.
Court still French speaking, but even the nobility by this point English speaking. That was the propaganda. They're going to wipe out the English language, the evil French, and the Scots in league with them. Uh, so, national pride. This defeat has to be avenged. National security. The North is getting invaded, getting raided anyway,
Which was sort of true.
which is basically, yeah, sort of true. Again, the movie absurdly depicts it as an outright invasion, taking York. Good grief. Uh,
Wallace never had the men nor the siege equipment.
yeah, he could never take even little fortified places.
Hmm.
But anyway, he did raid, and the raids were not nice. Of course, the English hadn't been nice, but he did raid. Uh, Atrocities were committed and exaggerated.
Hmm.
But Edward and the nobles and the crown were able to compromise, neither feeling humiliated. So Wallace saved Edward from a political crisis in a way. This gave him the opportunity to save himself. Edward's great grandfather, the notorious John, would never have done that. Uh, Not great grandfather, grandfather, the notorious John would never have done that. Edward's father, Henry III, would have had a hard time doing that. Edward, though he was stubborn, was a smart man. He couldn't figure out, very proud, he couldn't figure out a way to adjust without damage to his pride. Then Wallace provided it
Ah, interesting.
graciously for the sake of the realm. I'm willing to meet you halfway. And then together, we will deal with these threats.
Talk about unintended consequences. You never quite know what you're, you never quite know what you do is going to do.
That's very, very true for
Ugh.
all of us. And Edward himself marched to Scotland. And Wallace, it's still debated, was he forced by his troops, or was he tricked into pride by the defensive, by his success at Stirling Bridge? Andrew Morey had been wounded at Stirling Bridge, so he was out of the picture. Uh, but he met Edward in the field,
In a pitched battle.
pitched battle at Falkirk.
Oops.
It was bad.
His army was neither large enough nor trained to fight pitched battles.
It did not have, his army was a straight out, simple infantry army. There was some cavalry, but the nobles of Scotland, who came together reasonably well for the moment, but they were deeply divided. The Bruce faction versus the Cumming faction. They were so badly divided. This could have been an interesting scene in a movie, so badly divided that at one point, Robert Bruce and John Cumming had an argument so fierce that they leapt up from the council table, started grappling, had each other by the throat. And Wallace's older brother, William Wallace's older brother, uh, had to break up the fight. That said, Wallace really did gain extraordinary stature in Scotland. Enough stature, and many, many good episodes in a movie could have been made about his guerrilla exploits. Only and over just over a couple of years, he gained enough prestige to command an army with Andrew Moray. Moray was killed in battle at Stirling Bridge, so Wallace had the full prestige from that victory. Younger son of a gentry family, but he was recognized as protector of Scotland, knighted, was able to send out some diplomatic communications under a seal that was made for him, including one to the German city of Lubeck, which in effect said, Scotland is back in business. Come and trade with us.
Mm-hmm.
He rose pretty dramatically, but he fell after Falkirk. He continued to be a powerful guerrilla leader, but he was no longer in the ruling council of Scotland.
Ah,
You don't recover from a military disaster like that. It was a straight out infantry army. It did not have adequate cavalry, good infantry, enough to win at Falkirk, but not adequate cavalry and not adequate archers and no solution for how to deal with the English archers.
oh. And he went into the battle knowing all this and decided to try it anyway.
This was argued. Was he forced by his men who were elated and overconfident, or was it his mistake? Accounts differ.
He came into a complicated situation with one tool in his toolbox, and he needed five or six.
Good way to put it.
Yeah.
Two tools, guerrilla warfare and good infantry. Guerrilla warfare, I really think, uh, had more potential for wearing the English down than attempting field battles.
Uh-huh.
So famously, Robert Bruce, the hero king, as they say, uh, after he personally, so John Balliol, who's made King John of Scotland, surrendered to Edward and was imprisoned. His backers, the Cummings, remained very powerful in Scotland. Robert Bruce personally killed the head of the Cummings in church at the high altar.
Man, people played hardball back then.
So that was so dramatic. It's pretty much inconceivable. Robert Bruce was no dunderhead. He was a man of his hands. And he, as I mentioned, he and Cumming had gotten literally their hands on each other before. They were both men of their hands, but he was no fool. That killing in church at the altar makes me think it was not premeditated, because inevitably he was going to be excommunicated after that. That was inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Inevitably, it was going to be huge propaganda to the English. Look who's opposing us.
Right. Madmen!
A man so degraded and deranged that he will kill a political opponent
In church!
in church, not just in church, at the altar. Must have been that he and Cummings met there because they thought that that would guarantee no violence. They must have come to blows. the course of the struggle, a movie maker could decide how to arrange this fight. Uh, there was no eyewitness to how it happened. It was just the two of them. There are people waiting outside. Um, but a movie maker could have some fun deciding how the fight happened. Someone drew a knife, and the affair ended with Robert Bruce stabbing coming. He went out, and I think it was Alexander Seaton anyway, who asked him what happened. Uh, Bruce said, "I think I just killed John Cumming." And Seaton said, "You think? Well, I'll make sure." Went in and finished him off. After that, Bruce felt he had no choice but to make his premature bid for the crown.
Mm. He didn't have time to adequately prepare.
He did not have time to adequately prepare. And Edward's men, not Edward personally at this point, he was quite advanced in years by medieval standards. He passed 65. Wow. Uh, to me, as a modern man, at 61, 65 doesn't seem that old. But for the medievals, that was an advanced age. Edward's men came
An
down.
impressively advanced age.
Edward's men came down very hard on Bruce. It seemed a complete loss. Most of his family was captured, his brothers, except one, executed. His supporters executed some of them in a very unpleasant way. That Edward the First had debuted for William Wallace. Robert Bruce's fight back is one of the epics of history. As Edward debuted, and the movie does show this, dramatically, but it does show it. Uh, he had Wallace executed for treason as well as murder, uh, as well as sacrilege. So for the threefold offense, he would be hanged, drawn, and quartered. So hanged until he was almost dead, quite, then cut down. Then while he was alive, his belly would be opened and his innards removed.
That's when they just took your small intestine, put it
Yeah,
on a winch, and just pulled your intestines
no,
out.
they just pulled them out,
Oh, just pulled.
burned them before his eyes.
Someone did that by hand.
In the course of this, he probably died, but hand
They would pull
drawn.
your guts out and then burn them in front of you.
Yes,
So in your like sort of dying moments, you would see your own innards on the flames.
and then chopped in four parts
Hmm.
to be sent to be hung in various places as a warning. Uh, that was a debut. The treatment was debuted for William Wallace, but it remained the punishment for high treason for a while. There's an interesting shift in law as well. Uh, for about from the time that Earl Waltheof was executed by William the Conqueror, so late 11th century, to the time of William Wallace, to 220, 230 years, there'd been no executions for treason, and treason was narrowly defined. You betrayed the Lord you betrayed the sovereign to whom you had pledged loyalty. Shift in law with Edward the First. William Wallace, by the older standard, was no traitor because he made a point of it. He never pledged loyalty to Edward the First. Therefore, could not be a traitor. He had not betrayed his lord. But a new definition came into play. Edward the First. Betray the Lord, the sovereign, to whom you ought to have pledged.
Ah.
allegiance. A broader definition of treason,
Yes.
with which the English crown would have considerable fun over the years, uh, and resort and return to executions for treason.
Don't even know how to react. Seems so savage compared to the problems we deal with on a day to
Well,
day.
with emphasizing that for 220 years, there had not been executions for treason. Who were wealthy enough had been executed at the time of William the Conqueror. Then 220 years had passed without this. So that's an interesting shift from the shift from early medieval politics, which was exceedingly brutal. I think there's an Irish law code that has a sentence to the effect of, "He is no king who does not have hostages." Uh, Early medieval politics, exceedingly brutal. Then this period of rather self-consciously civilized politics, things could still get rough, but you weren't executing people on political grounds. Late 11th, 12th, 13th century. Then you enter the later Middle Ages, and you have political executions again
Uh-huh.
with a broader definition of treason.
Right. Right. Somehow you had somehow done harm to the crown. Right.
Versus the older definition by which Wallace had lived and expected to die. He didn't expect to be executed for treason. The older definition, he was not guilty of treason.
He had never taken an
He
oath.
had never taken an oath of loyalty.
Right.
This is undoubtedly a heroic figure, well deserving a movie. But I resented his life being entirely fictionalized.
Entirely.
Entirely.
Yeah. The name and the fact that he was executed.
That's about it.
That's about it.
And he fought Edward the First.
Yes. Hmm. All right, we're almost out of time. I got one more for you.
All right.
The Passion of the Christ.
Well, that's astonishing. It's an astonishing movie. There, we'll redeem Mel Gibson as a final word.
Yes, exactly.
Historically accurate, even to the point of using the appropriate languages. So it is stunning. And hear the actors speaking in Hebrew and Latin.
Yes. Remarkable.
Remarkable. Stunning, I would say.
Yeah. So interesting how
I don't say stunning very often.
No, you don't.
I critique the use of the word stunning because stunning should leave you temporarily speechless,
Speechless.
incapable of reacting.
Yes.
And that was the Passion of the Christ. I was stunned.
It's amazing how the soldiers speaking Latin during the scene of the scourging. There's no subtitles, right? Yeah, they turn off the Not that they turn off. They just didn't provide subtitles. Yeah, there's no need. Everyone knows what's being substantively. Everyone knows what's being said. Yeah, here are men Here are degraded men speaking only about pain.
Speaking only about pain.
Yeah, the pain they're going to inflict, even sexual overtones of the pain they're going to inflict. Yeah. My Latin teacher said she sat in the theater and she was a Latin teacher. She understood what they were saying. I'm not going to translate this.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good movie. I haven't seen it in a while.
I haven't seen it in a while. It's not one to watch often.
Mm,
It is
right.
an arduous experience. And it was meant to be.
Yep.
Passion of the Christ. The passion not understated.
No. No, it wasn't. Yeah. No, they went after Mel Gibson for that one. The greater establishment of Hollywood.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Back in the days when they had more power than they do today.
Yeah. When did they lose their power? Was it the internet?
It was part of it. they'd been declining already.
Mm-hmm.
Public saw movies less often. There are alternative makers of movies,
Mm-hmm.
more of those outside of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Uh, the public increasingly developed the impression that Hollywood didn't like them.
And they were not mistaken in this impression.
It's a terrible thing for a performer. Hollywood is performance. Collectively, it's a performer. It's a terrible thing for a performer if your audience decides you don't like it. You're done. People have to think you like them. Imagine that.
Right. Right. What did we once say about charm? Charm takes at least some effort.
It does.
So to be charming, you actually are paying the person that you're trying to charm at least a compliment of
That's the key.
you think they're worth
You
charming.
think they're worth charming. And even if they know you're being charming, if they're not totally naive, they pick up on that,
Right.
but they appreciate the compliment. You are making the effort to charm them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Even if your efforts are perhaps not the most polished or what, even you might even get someone to roll their eyes at you because your efforts at charming are so obviously efforts, but it's hard to completely dismiss
Yes,
someone who's trying to charm you.
yes, it's a compliment. You're worth charming.
Yeah.
The audience needs to feel that compliment. You like them. Uh, yes, that's true. It's true of the art of preaching. Uh, it's true of instruction. Yeah, your students have to think you like them.
That's so interesting. We always respond to how people make us feel.
Exactly. They think you like them. They'll take things from you, but they won't take if they think you hate them. My dad tells a story about a particular Spanish teacher. And he said he's a brilliantly successful Spanish teacher. I observe his classroom, and every lesson he would violate four or five of the rules that teach the teacher factory. And the rules have a reason. There's a reason for them. This is what you need to do in the classroom. This is what you shouldn't do in the classroom.
Hmm.
He did his own thing, brilliantly successful for various reasons. Despite that, no other teacher could do what he did successfully. The heart of it was, and it's not like he was an easy teacher, he wasn't. Part of it was the students felt that he liked them. And they responded, he's on our side. That's invaluable.
Right. He's on our side without being one of us
Right.
or trying to make himself one of us.
Still the teacher. That respect has to be. It's like that kid from Covington who ran into that bizarre, the March of Life, with a kid from Covington, Catholic high school in Covington, and there was this odd kerfluffle about him having,
A weird look on his face.
yeah, an inappropriate look in his face. This is another what the hell moment
Right.
when I decided that the majority of America's media are not worth lukewarm spit. Uh, they're having a serious national discussion about whether a particular teenager had an appropriate look on his face.
Yes.
That's the moment I decided I'm done with them all.
Oh
Just,
goodness. How much did they sue? They sued one of those networks for like 360 million.
yes. What struck me is that the ignoble Bishop of Covington, his immediate response, before waiting with any, without waiting for any facts, he put out a statement expressing his regret that students from Covington High School that a student from his high school would have behaved inappropriately, and there'll be discipline. So loyalty flows both ways. Your people will be loyal to you if you're loyal to them. And here we had the bishop publicly throwing a kid under the bus so that the bishop could be the righteous one. Now, I have not followed the adventures of the Diocese of Covington after that, But what are people going to think the next time? Every diocese does this as an annual appeal. Give your diocese some money. It has work to do. The annual appeal is important. I shouldn't make fun of it. It's important. What's the effect going to be? What's the effect in his appeal of him having shown his willingness
To throw
to throw in
a
a
16-year-old under the bus
bus so that he can be the righteous one?
in the eyes of a very select group of elites.
Exactly. Uh, Even as a bishop, you will be successful if your people think you like them. And they'll put up with you, most of them, uh, doing something they don't like. They will put up with some disciplinary action that they might think is too much. They'll put up with it if they think you'll like them. That has to be established first. And there's a bit of theater to that. There's concrete action to that as well.
Hmm.
There's a bit of theater to that. As you said, charm. Uh, make the effort, take some effort. And it doesn't have to be, you said that, it doesn't have to be perfect effort. Just make the effort to show that you'll like them.
Right. And also, if you're going to be a leader, find people to lead that you can genuinely like.
That always helps. Yes. Don't have this chance to do that.
Hmm.
But your people need to believe that you like them and that, as they say, you have their back.
Right.
Part of the magic, if you will, and people can write and have written about the scandals behind the scenes of old Hollywood. But part of the magic, if you will, of old Hollywood was that the American people felt that it liked them.
Hmm. Right. That we want to make stories for you.
For you. We want to make stories for you that you will like.
And if people feel that you like them, they're probably going to be pretty willing to put up with frankly, all sorts of shenanigans.
They will put up with all sorts of shenanigans. And they'll even put up with some challenging things in the stories once you've established that you like them. And you want to make stories they will like. And maybe eventually some of them will be challenging. They'll have to think about the story a little bit. So it doesn't have to be fluff. But you just start out showing you like them and respect them. So some substance as well, not just pandering.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that teacher. People don't think of him as an easy teacher, but they got the impression he liked them. Try to think of movies that show that quality of leadership. Band of Brothers does.
Band of Brothers does. We Were Soldiers, maybe.
Yes, We Were Soldiers does.
Henry V. I mean, it's not.
So getting but it gets that idea.
Kind of historical. Yeah, it's Shakespeare.
Experience sort of way.
Yeah.
Touch of Harry in the Night
Yeah.
captures that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the historical Henry V had some of that, quite a bit of that. He undoubtedly had charisma. You can read what French writers said about him. He's an enemy they admired.
Mm-hmm.
Many modern people didn't admire him. Contemporaries did.
Hmm. Even Robert Bolt gets at this a little bit in A Man for All Seasons, right?
Yes.
When Matthew, the servant, turns to the audience and says, "Wait, Thomas is going to miss me.
Ah,
What's
exactly.
in there in me to miss?" Even he's sort of shocked by it.
I will miss you, Thomas.
We'll miss you.
Yes.
Hmm.
Very brief scene, easily overlooked, but rather powerful.
Very powerful. Hmm. Padre, we'll probably have to call it at that.
Yes,
That's a lot. That's a lot to ponder.
always much to ponder.
Always much to
Oh my
ponder.
gosh, look at the time.
It is. Look at the
Really
time,
soon.
and goodness gracious, we didn't even get to half the movies on my list.
Oh well.
We'll have to have you back to get some more of your one sentence hot takes. Although I will admit, I'm also a little surprised that half your hot takes were whoof.
I had no words for the Patriot.
Yeah, there are no words. Well, very good. Well, our words to you is thank you as always for
Thank you
coming
very
on.
much.
It's always a pleasure.
All right.
Cheers.
Bless. No words to the Patriot. No words to the kingdom of heaven except expletives.